Welcome to the Green Building Show, where we investigate green design and building trends throughout Australia.
Hi, this week we kick off a brand new series on how to plan and build your renovation. To get us started, we speak with Drenka Andjelic from project management firm Construction Assignments, and she's going to explain the best way to create a renovation plan for your home. And in Australian style, we also kick off a new series looking at lightweight alterations and additions, or what we call remarkable renovations. And later in this episode, Mark Jones will bring us the latest light home hot design blog. I'm here today with Drenka Andjelic. She's the Managing Director of Construction Assignments, a project management firm. Thanks for being with us, Drenka.
Thank you.
So today we're talking about planning your renovation. I guess what, in your opinion, is the most important piece of advice that you could give to a homeowner when it comes to planning their renovation?
For me, I guess the best bit of advice I would give is to start with the end in sight. So be very, very specific of what you want the end product to be, and be really, really clear on that, and work out the best way to communicate exactly what it is that you want the finished product to be.
All right, great. And I guess what are some of the major problems or main mistakes that people can make?
I think going over budget is the greatest, I guess, obstacle to a successful home renovation. Going over time is also one of those things. People often underestimate just how long it'll take. Other obstacles are dealing with neighbours, dealing with local council approvals, the length of time that can take as well, great. And the costs with that.
Okay, and just from your first two, time and budget, I guess what's a way to keep them in constraint?
I guess it's to be really quite realistic as to what things cost, work out, have the end in sight as to what you want your product to be, but then actually go and work out, do you have the bucks to achieve what it is that you want? And if you need to compromise early rather than towards the end. And with all that sort of stuff, is design's the answer rather than throwing money at it. So get yourself a good design team that helps you realise your goals and
okay,
plans.
Great. And when does the design team come on board, Drenka?
Very early on, as soon as you've worked out what it is that you want, and I find one of the best ways of communicating what it is that you want, and it's really, really simple, is a scrapbook. Find pictures of things that you like, pictures of things you don't like, and then you can use that really simple technique to then communicate that with pictures rather than words sometimes, because a lot of people aren't construction design savvy, but they know what they want when they're given photographs.
All right, fantastic. And you said the first point of call is to find out really what it is you want. I guess, how do you go about doing that home assessment? I guess, what's some tactics people can use to work out what kind of functional needs they need? Yeah,
I think people generally know it is what they want. If they're a young couple, do they want room for expansion? Do they want room for entertaining? It's whether you've bought the house already or whether you're out looking for houses that have potential, and it's assessing what that potential might be, and that'll kind of rule you out of looking at homes that don't meet that criteria.
So I guess it's likely that if you do something that you think is necessary for your occupation of the home, it's likely that will also be a value add?
Yeah, I think so. Unless you go and do something really crazy like your favourite colours, hot pink, and you make the kitchen hot pink, then that may not work for everyone. But it's a call you have to make as to your target market, whether you're going to occupy the house or whether you're going to make a profit and sell it.
Great. Okay, and what about sustainability? Trying to make your renovation as sustainable as possible. Do you think that's a luxury in terms of your budget, or is it something that can actually turn out cheaper?
I think that, I guess with the cost of electricity these days and rising, and with lots of things that you can do, I think it's sensible. I think you have to do it. I think it doesn't necessarily incur significant cost. I think it's something that's attractive to future owners of the house. So I think it's a wise thing to do with probably only very small cost penalties, if any, these days. It used to cost a lot more 5 to 10 years ago to implement, I guess, sustainability initiatives. Yeah.
And do you think there's any financial advantage in terms of, like, you know, green mortgages or government rebates or something like that?
I think that for anyone looking to buy a house that knows that it's been built with sustainable practices and inclusion of things that are going to save them money in the long run, that's going to be an energy efficient home, I think that there's definitely some payback in it.
All right, great. And you mentioned earlier that you bring the designer in very early in the stage.
Yep.
What about the builder or the project manager?
You would bring the designer in fairly early. I typically would then pick 1 or 2 builders and then just get them to give you a sanity check in terms of, are we headed in the right direction with this design, with this budget that we have. So get them involved sooner rather than later, working together in terms of the contractor and the architect or interior designer, so that you're designing and developing something that's very much set and focused on your budget.
Okay, and how do you go about briefing your designer? Is that just simple as sitting down with a cup of coffee and actually discussing what it is you need, or do you need to really put a lot on paper?
You need to put some stuff on paper, but it can be a combination of the scrapbook that I mentioned earlier, but then it could only just be 1 or 2 pages of bullet point notes on being very specific about what it is that you want out of this house, whether it's an extra bedroom or 3 bedrooms or 2 bathrooms, and the look and feel of things in terms of the finishes that you're after.
Cool, and I really like that idea of the scrapbook. Is that something you've used in your...
I do it all the time, yeah.
And how did you come to that idea, and I guess what's the advantages you see?
I think I probably come to it with whipping out pictures of things all the time, or printing things off and then needing to file it somewhere, so it's a fun cut and paste exercise that it ends up at the back of your diary, and then you consolidate them all into...
And how does that help you? How does that help you in the design, working out what it is you actually want?
I think with any successful renovation or construction project, it's all down to how clearly you communicate what it is that you want, and pictures are so much better than words, because you can use words, but those words will mean something different to the builder. They'll mean something different to the designer, something different to the electrician or the plumber. So if you can, whereas a picture, I think, leaves very little to other people's interpretation. It's pretty specific as to what you want. So I just think it's an effective communication tool.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. So get the designer in early, brief with pictures, keep time and budget.
Keep tracking it.
Top of mind?
Yeah.
Anything else you think is really important?
I think, just trying to think in terms of pitfalls, it's really important to know what you want and stick to it, and to be very aware of the fact that if you change your mind along the way, that it'll probably incur time and cost to the end target. So it's to sort of agree on things and minimise the number of changes that you make to things.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Drenka Andjelic, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
So for this week's Hot Design blog, we found Interiors Addict. This is by Jen Bishop. She's an ex-magazine editor, basically blogging about everything for interior design, as well as interviewing interior designers from around Australia. Jen Bishop has gone from an interviewer to an interviewee, being in high demand from many publications and being featured in many publications across Australia. She's also gone from a journalist to a full-time blogger, and you can find her on Twitter and Facebook.
I'm here today with Michael Dysart. He's the principal of Michael Dysart & Partners, an architectural firm based on the Central Coast, north of Sydney. Thanks for being with us, Michael.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be with you.
Great. So we're doing a renovation marble series, Michael, and your home, the recycled fibro cottage, also on the Central Coast, really seems to fit that bill. Can you explain, I guess, how the project came about? What was the brief from the client?
Well, the client exactly was me, or more particularly my wife. But in fact, the house is actually, as you probably gather, is on the coast. A very modest 6 square metres or 60 square metre home, tiny by today's comparison, and built in the 1950s, as you say, and but we wanted more space, so we had to try and make it work. And in fact, what I did do was try and encapsulate the existing house within the new alterations, if you like.
So what was the main difficulty or the main challenge with retrofitting an old 1950s fibro house into something more modern but keeping that 1950s feel?
Well, that was the interesting thing, because in fact a lot of the 1950s ethos, because in fact they had no money and it was very frugal time, it was very simplistic. So the architecture of the original was in fact a nice, very simple, unpretentious house. And all I did really was to try and echo those same values of the same issues and use the same principles, such as it would have been a owner built a house in the 1950s, and my owner built it in 2005.
Okay, great. And why do you think the use of lightweight materials was a key part of this renovation?
Well, the original was made of fibro, and so it was logical to keep the same visual language, if you like, going. And the panel system in today's terms would have been the current fibro. So in fact, the materials used, or many of the materials used, were the same materials, if you like, or similar materials that were used back in the 50s.
Okay, fantastic. And this also won an Australian Institute of Architects award for small project architecture. What do you think the standout feature was, or what do you think really sealed the deal in terms of from a judge's perspective?
Well, I think the fact that it was economical, and not economical necessarily, but I mean, clearly I deliberately put it in the small homes or the small projects category, simply to emphasise the fact that you don't have to spend a fortune on doing up houses, and the age of McMansions is with us. So the idea was to try and create a modest addition to the house, which is visually interesting, and did it all for $180,000, which is quite cheap.
Fantastic. Michael Dysart, thank you for your time.
Thank you.